After graduating from college, I dumped Julian Thorne, a top-tier alpha. Pregnant with his baby, I lied and told him I was just playing around. His eyes red with tears, he swore he'd hate me forever. A few years later, I became his temporary editor. The moment I knocked on his door, I was met with his furious, red-rimmed eyes. Terrified, I slammed the door shut. My apologies, wrong door. When I knocked on the door of the great author Lex, who was notorious for his long hiatuses, my nose was immediately filled with the strong scent of lime-scented pheromones. I didn't recognize Julian Thorne at first glance. I just saw his bloodshot eyes and smelled his scent, and my body slammed the door shut on pure reflex. But the door didn't close. Julian blocked it with his hand. Even the strongest person would cry out in pain if their hand was caught in a security door. Julian was no exception. Although he only let out a low, muffled groan, it sounded even more painful than a scream. I frantically let go of the handle. I was tongue-tied, not knowing what to say. I could only stare at Julian, my eyes asking him why he would do something so reckless. He pulled his hand back, and his previously slumped posture instantly straightened. He ran a hand through his hair, covering the lower half of his face. He glanced at me. "You're the new editor from the company, right? Come in and sit for a bit. I'll be ready in a moment." After speaking, he turned and walked into the bathroom. Before he went in, he didn't forget to threaten me. "If you leave, I'll just extend the hiatus." I stood outside the door, completely baffled and caught in a dilemma. Could it be he just had red eyes from staying up all night writing? Could it be he didn't remember who I was at all? It only took a second for me to accept the reality of my own insignificance. After all, when I finally won Julian over after relentlessly pursuing him in college, I knew he was just playing around with me. Our worlds were too far apart. We were never meant to have a future together. He had stressed it to me countless times. He said he was only with me because I seemed obedient, and because I was a useful shield against unwanted admirers. He told me not to get any wishful ideas or try to get pregnant with his child. He was afraid I'd use a baby to climb the social ladder. I really was obedient, and I listened to him. Chasing him was the most out-of-character thing I had ever done. So, when I unexpectedly discovered I was pregnant with his baby upon graduation, I broke up with him abruptly. I couldn't have everything, but I also couldn't end up with nothing. So I chose the baby, not Julian. Besides, he was bound to leave me sooner or later. Our breakup was ugly. Julian seemed genuinely surprised, raising an eyebrow and asking me why. I obediently said, "Because we were just playing around, right?" Julian was such a hypocrite. He was always the one saying things like that, and I never got mad. I said it just once, and his eyes turned red with anger. He pointed at my nose and said, "You dare to dump me first. I'll really hold a grudge against you for the rest of my life. If you've got the guts, then stay out of my sight forever, or I'll make you pay." So childish. He said he'd hate me for life, but now he didn't even recognize me. But I didn't blame him. If it weren't for his pheromones and his eyes, I might not have recognized him either. He was so unkempt. His beard was a mess. His hair, too, had grown long and was all over the place. He looked like a worn-out old artist, not quite as handsome anymore. So the frantic pounding in my chest was purely out of fear that he'd recognize me. It wasn't because I still had any lingering feelings for him. I spent a long time trying to convince myself of that. I didn't go into his house. I just stayed in the hallway, arguing on the phone with my chief editor. "Leo, you should find another editor for Lex. I'm just here on a business trip, and he's an alpha. I can't be his permanent editor." Even though Lex Julian didn't remember me at all, I was still worried he might suddenly recall everything and decide to make me pay. My chief editor, Leo, was miles away in Central City, but his words were as venomous as ever. They could kill a man from across the country. "Lex is our company's cash cow. Sure, he's prickly, bad-tempered, and has driven away countless editors, but you're good-tempered and you don't get fazed by alphas. You're the perfect person for the job anyway. You'll be in charge of chasing him for his manuscript while you're in Z City. I'll find a local patsy, editor, to take over as soon as I can. Don't worry, I'll give you a bonus for hazardous duty pay." He hung up before I could say another word. I stared at my phone, utterly dejected. If I had known, I never would have come to Z City for this trip, but the thought of the bonus put some fight back in me. My baby girl had just turned 3, an age where she needed to be raised with every resource I could provide. I had to earn more money, all for my sweetheart. I spent a full half-hour psyching myself up outside his door. Finally, Julian came out. He looked panicked. He scanned the living room, then rushed out into the hallway. When he saw me with my back to his door, looking at the scenery below, he fell silent for a few seconds. His lips parted and closed several times before he managed to speak. He asked me, "Didn't I tell you to come in and sit?" When I turned around, I was stunned. Incredible. I suspected he hadn't just taken a shower, but had made a trip to a salon. The worn-out artist had transformed into a handsome, mature man. He had showered and shaved. His hair was slicked back, with a few wet strands falling onto his shoulders, dripping water. My eyes followed the droplets down. He wasn't wearing a shirt. An 8-pack was chiseled onto his abdomen, and his V-lines were as sharp and defined as ever. A single bath towel was wrapped around his waist. My face started to burn. I covered my nose and eyes, peeking through my splayed fingers. "Lex, sir, maybe you should put on some clothes before we talk." Julian froze for a second. He repeated, "Lex, sir?" I blinked and nodded. Yes. Or did I knock on the wrong doors? His expression went blank for a moment, then he clenched his fists and went back inside. In a low voice, he threw a final sentence over his shoulder. "You've got the right person." I'm Lex. Lex was the hottest IP author signed with our company. Under normal circumstances, a relatively inexperienced editor like me wouldn't be assigned to him. But rumor had it that Lex was incredibly eccentric, updated his work whenever he felt like it, and completely ignored his editors. He was also known for his brutally harsh words. This caused a string of editors to have mental breakdowns and quit. I figured I probably wouldn't last long with him either. After all, my personality was far too soft. I wouldn't throw a fit when bullied, but I would give up on an author who was impossible to communicate with. That's why the authors I managed were either as gentle as me or unpredictable but kind. Lex, or rather Julian. How could I possibly handle someone like him? Based on my experience of pursuing him for a year and dating him for a year, I probably wouldn't last 2 weeks this time. I'd just muddle through and get the bonus. With that thought, I finally relaxed. I followed Lex inside, giving the place a casual glance. His house was large and minimalist, with little sign of life. I sat on the sofa, not daring to look around anymore. I just looked up at Lex and put on my professional smile. "Lex, sir, I heard you've been on hiatus for a long time. Are you facing any difficulties?" Julian poured me a cup of tea and held it out to me. Just as I was about to take it, he pulled it back and placed it on the coffee table. "Never mind, it's a bit hot. Wait a little before you drink it." I was utterly shocked. You have to understand, when I was dating him, I was completely the giving type in the relationship, and Julian was a purebred young master. He only knew how to receive, and he had an incredibly high sense of entitlement. I never expected him to reciprocate emotionally. Just being by his side was enough for me to be grateful. He was brilliant and handsome. His smile was wild and unrestrained. He was always the center of a crowd. He was everything I could never be, no matter how hard I tried to act the part. But he had changed now. After I left him, a belated sadness washed over me. I really wanted to know who had taught him to be considerate of others' feelings. Julian must love that person very, very much to be willing to change. But at this point, what right did I have to be bitter? I stared blankly at the teacup. I didn't even notice when Julian sat down beside me. He said, "I'm not having any difficulties. It's just that the chief editor wants me to keep writing mystery novels." I was confused. "Isn't that your signature genre?" Julian's next words were startling. "I don't want to write mystery. I want to write a groveling to win her back story." The chief editor said I have a knack for writing scumbag protagonists, but then asked, "Where's the groveling part?" Julian turned to look at me, his gaze deep. "I don't know how to grovel to win someone back, so I'm stuck." I stared blankly at Julian, forgetting to breathe. My face turned red. Finally, I managed to squeeze out a sentence. "You should be dominating your own field. Why the sudden change in genre?" Julian shrugged, casually wiping a drop of water from his chest. He seemed to be thinking about how to answer my question. His movements were slow and languid. Of course, I might have been overthinking it. The other editors asked me the same thing. They even begged me to go back to the mystery genre. He slowly raised his head, his eyes locking onto mine again. "But they have no right to tell me what to do. I just want to challenge myself with this new genre." I didn't understand, but I tried to be respectful. "But sir, you don't know how to write the winning her back part." Julian replied with complete naturalness, "So I need someone to teach me. By the way, you haven't introduced yourself." I'd forgotten about that. Since he didn't remember me, I certainly couldn't tell him my real name. "My pen name is My Dearest Baby. I'm an editor for the tragic romance genre. Julian stiffened and suddenly lowered his head. I couldn't see his expression. I just felt the air grow thick, making it hard to breathe. My dearest baby, I covered my nose and patted his arm. Sir, your pheromones, they're a bit overwhelming. The air suddenly lightened and I took a few gasping breaths. Julian didn't look at me, just kept his head down. Since you understand tragic romance, you're the perfect person to teach me how to win a wife back. He must be really hung up on his ex to abandon his strongest genre just to write a story about winning someone back. Was he planning to learn from the story and then apply it in real life? I picked at my fingers. I suppose I could, but will you listen to me? Julian was being crafty. I'll listen if it works. Did that mean it only counted as working if the book became a hit? Sigh, I might as well give it a shot. How would I know if it would work without trying? Since you want to try, let's give it a shot. Anyway, for the time I'm tracking your progress, I'll fulfill my duties as your editor. For the time, you're not going to be my editor from now on. Julian turned to look at me, a sense of urgency in his eyes. For some reason, I suddenly found it hard to look at him. Maybe it was because I had dumped him once, and now, as his editor, I was going to have to dump him again. I felt a pang of guilt. To be fair, while Julian wasn't good at relationships and said hurtful things, he was very generous to me when we were dating. He barely ever let me spend my own money. You could say he was good to me, but he didn't love me. You could say he was bad to me, but he spent money on me, and he was handsome and good in bed. He just didn't love me. I lowered my head, picked up the now lukewarm teacup, and watched the high-quality tea leaves slowly sink to the bottom. I answered his question. Yes, I'm just here on a business trip. I'll be your temporary editor until the chief editor finds a new one based in Z City. Julian was silent for a long time. I couldn't help but turn to look at him. I was met with a pair of deep, dark eyes. He suddenly smiled. It was a low, hoarse sound. Fine, you can teach me for as long as you're here. I'll figure out the rest on my own. The way he said it, it sounded like he was heading into battle. Strangely suppressive, yet passionate. It left me completely bewildered. I sat in Julian's study and examined his original manuscript. It read a lot like a mystery novel. A wealthy alpha protagonist dates a poor omega protagonist for several years. The omega protagonist gives his all silently, while the alpha protagonist just shovels money at him. When the omega accidentally gets pregnant, the alpha gives him money again. Tells him to get an abortion, and the rest is for compensation. He repeatedly reminds the omega protagonist to know his place and not to desire things that don't belong to him, including the alpha's noble bloodline. But the alpha doesn't like to use protection and loves sleeping with the omega. After about 3 abortions, the omega, with empty eyes, suggests a breakup. The alpha is confused and asks, "Why? Haven't I been good enough to you? It's just a baby. Is it necessary to make such a fuss?" The omega says nothing, takes nothing, and disappears from the alpha's world. The alpha doesn't understand and asks everyone he meets, "Why? Wasn't I good enough to him?" But his world is full of people just like him. Powerful, wealthy, and condescending. They have their own system of logic. If a kept lover throws a tantrum, it means they're being unreasonable. It means they're greedy and want more. After listening to all their advice, the alpha is completely lost. He's resentful, but his heart feels empty. The more he thinks, the angrier he gets. He takes an extreme route, kidnapping the omega and locking him in a dark room. He forces himself on him. And in the process, the omega has a miscarriage. The comment section was a battlefield author. "Are you asleep? I can't sleep. How about you reimburse me a few bucks? You idiot protagonist, if you manage to win him back like this, I'll livestream myself eating crap I've already sent razor blades. Author, remember to use them on your own carotid artery. Go home, kid. Go back to writing mystery. You're not worthy of writing romance." And then, Julian, in a fit of defiance, went on hiatus. Actually, the novel was quite popular. Perhaps because the plot was so infuriating, it had countless angry comments. Continuing the angst wouldn't have been a bad idea, so I told him the truth. It's fine, just keep up the angst. A lot of readers love this kind of heart-wrenching plot. They complain, but they keep reading. Julian leaned against the desk, looking bored. He had given me his ergonomic chair, and now he was waiting for me to finish, his long legs stretched out beside me. Hearing my words, he shook his head in disappointment. "I don't want angry comments. I want an effective win-him-back plot. I wrote it this way because I wanted to see if the forced romance that so many readers claim to love is actually effective. But most people are cursing me out, which means this method isn't widely accepted. He then turned and asked me, "Baby, could you accept it?" I froze when I heard him call me that. When I realized what he'd said, I knew he was just calling me by my pen name. Oh my God, that was so embarrassing, I blushed. Sir, you can just call me editor. Calling me that makes me a little shy. Personally, I think for forced romance to work, there has to be love first, then the force. The way you wrote it as a reader, I can't really accept it. But as an editor, I would advise you to just focus on making money. As long as the protagonist doesn't get him back in the end, it's a successful groveling to win him back story. Julian's eyes darkened. What if I want the protagonist to win him back? I smiled. That's called a reconciliation story, not a groveling to win him back story. Julian stated firmly, then what I'm writing is a reconciliation story. My brain went numb, as expected of a big shot author who didn't need the money. He just did whatever he wanted. I held my tongue. In that case, I'd advise you to make your protagonist act like a decent human being. Have him find every opportunity to be good to the Omega, heal his emotional wounds, and then start a new, equal, and normal relationship. Julian placed his hands on my chair, turning me 90 degrees. He leaned down and looked at me seriously. His gaze was deceptively affectionate. Then he asked, "So what should I do?" I guessed he was asking what he should write for the next part of the story. But to be honest, I wasn't very good at this either. What kind of fool would get back together with someone after being treated so horribly? A love-struck idiot. But the plot had to continue, so I just made something up. I see the Omega protagonist initially fell for the Alpha because of his superior looks. So why not start with the Alpha, accidentally, appearing in front of the Omega and seducing him with his looks? Of course, the prerequisite is that the Alpha starts acting like a normal person first. This idea was inspired by another Omega author I manage. That's how his husband managed to reel him in, step by step. While it wasn't exactly a winning him back story, as long as the strategy worked, it was a good one. Julian looked thoughtful. He glanced down at his own bare torso and his tense muscles. He seemed skeptical. Will that really work? I secretly glanced at his muscles, then quickly looked away. I nodded vigorously. If the Omega hasn't completely forgotten the Alpha, I guarantee it will work. Julian didn't seem very happy, but he decided to give it a try. I'll try it then. I stood up, ready to leave. But I couldn't suppress the curiosity in my heart. When I broke up with him, he had only threatened to make me pay if I ever showed up in front of him again. Could his true love be even more foolish than me, having had several abortions for him? Given that so many authors I work with write based on their real lives, I had a strong suspicion that Julian was writing his own love story. But even though he didn't know how to love, he couldn't be that much of a scumbag. A sour feeling bubbled up inside me. I couldn't help but wonder why he had become like this. Why hadn't he tried to hold on to me back then? Was it because I hadn't given more, hadn't had an abortion for him? So I finally looked up and asked Julian, "Why did you want to write a story like this? Did you get the inspiration from real life?" After leaving Julian's house, I returned to the hotel like a wandering ghost. After a shower, I lay in bed. A faint, lingering scent of lime tickled my nose, and I finally snapped back to reality. It was the scent of my travel-sized shampoo and body wash. It wasn't that Julian's pheromones were so strong they couldn't be washed off. I burrowed under the covers, curled into a ball, and took a deep breath. I suddenly remembered Julian's answer before I left. He had said yes and no. Reality wasn't that dramatic, but the protagonist did only realize his feelings after he lost his lover. He had looked lost, but he doesn't know how to win him back. He's also afraid to face him, so he's just been waiting passively. Now it seems it might be too late. I didn't know who he was talking about. And I didn't dare to ask more. I was afraid of hearing something I didn't want to hear, and afraid of hearing something I shouldn't. I turned, said goodbye, and left, trying to appear composed. I thought to myself, Julian didn't recognize me. No matter how much I overthought it, I couldn't assume that I was one of the protagonists in his story. How often in the world do you get missed connections and happy ever afters? I've read plenty of them in novels. But in reality, the probability is almost zero, and I'm not that narcissistic. I pulled myself together, got out from under the covers, and video called my little girl. Seeing her on the screen, chattering away to me in her sweet little voice, healed all the fatigue of the day. My mom asked when I was coming back. "Ian, Yasmin misses you so much. She secretly cries little teardrops every time you hang up. She's such a good girl. She's afraid you'll cry with her, so she acts like a little adult when she's on the video call with you." As my mom said this, my darling girl even balled up her little fist and playfully punched her. Grandma's lying, Dad, I'm a strong girl. I didn't cry. I was fine before. But hearing her say that, my nose suddenly tingled. I haven't been a good father. The time I get to spend with her each day is always just a few hours at night. When I decided to raise her on my own, I thought I could do it, that it wouldn't be hard. In reality, providing for a family is not that simple. I come from a single-parent family. My father died early, and my mother and I supported each other. In college, I was always working part-time jobs. My mom's heart ached for me, and she could never bring herself to rest. Later, when Julian started buying me luxury goods, I didn't act coy. I sold them all to help with our household expenses, so deep down, I felt I owed Julian. I always felt my love for him wasn't pure, that it was mixed with money and material things. I didn't dare to hope he could love someone like me. All I could do was love him a little more, and a little more through my actions. After all, the only thing I could give him was love, and he gave me everything but love. After we broke up, I couldn't live off everything he had given me for the rest of my life. I needed to build a bright, easier future for my daughter, so she wouldn't have to struggle like my mom and me. So I told my mom to stop working and just help me take care of Yasmin. After work, I would wholeheartedly spend time with Yasmin until she fell asleep. On days when I wasn't traveling for work, life was quite happy. We were a family of three generations under one roof. My darling girl is just like me, very obedient, but I gave her that name hoping she wouldn't be like me. I wanted her to be like the moon in the sky, ever-changing with its phases of bright and dark, full and crescent. Daring to let the world see her as she is. Maybe I failed as a father and still raised her to be an obedient and sensitive child. My heart melted completely. I looked at the little girl on my phone screen. Sweetheart, hasn't Dad told you? You can be clingy with Dad anytime. Whether you're crying or laughing, you don't have to be afraid. As soon as the words left my mouth, Yasmin's little face crumpled. Her lips trembled and the teardrops started to fall. Waya, Dad, I miss you so much. I haven't slept with you for so many days. I want you to tell me stories right next to me, not through this little square. Her crying shattered my heart. Then, sweetheart, how about you lie down in bed, close your eyes, and Dad will tell you a fairy tale. Dad knows magic, you know. The next time you open your eyes, Dad will appear right in front of you. She was still little and believed me. She obediently lay down on the bed and reluctantly closed her eyes. After I coaxed her to sleep through the phone, I immediately booked a flight back to Central City. I could communicate with authors through our work chat anyway. Coming back in a couple of days to follow up in person would be the same. Besides, Julian probably didn't like being watched so closely. I didn't need to worry too much. I flew home that night, arriving at 3 in the morning. My mom is a light sleeper and was woken by the sound of me opening the door. She came out, saw me, and laughed, her eyes red. I knew you wouldn't lie to Yasmin, but aren't you exhausted doing this? My heart aches for you too, you know. I shook my head and urged her to go back to bed. I would sleep with Yasmin. That way she would see her dad the moment she opened her eyes. I went to bed too late. The next day, Yasmin woke up before me. She happily pounced into my arms. Dad, you really do know magic. I had just opened my eyes and was helping her brush her teeth, wash her face, and tie her hair. I let her sit on my back and we played a little game of horseback riding. My phone rang. I glanced at it. It was Julian. I had exchanged work chat info with him yesterday. I had saved his contact very formally, Lex Author. I was afraid of accidentally calling him by the wrong name. He asked, I updated yesterday. When are you coming over today to teach me the new chapter, me? Wait, do I need to clock in at his house every day? That's unreasonable. But I couldn't just say I wasn't coming. Me, Lex, sir, I'm sorry. I flew back to Central City today. I can't make it. Lex, what did you go back for? I told the truth, to spend time with my baby girl. And then nothing, completely confused, I took Yasmin to the amusement park. There were a lot of kids at the park, and Yasmin became much more lively, her smile sweet. She started playing with the other children. Suddenly, my chief editor messaged me. Leo, screenshot Leo, did you piss him off? I looked at the screenshot. It was basically Lex picking a fight with Leo. Lex the money tree, what is your company's attitude? If you don't want to work with me, we can terminate the contract. Leo. Having another fit. Lex the money tree, I am very unhappy. I'm not writing anymore. Leo, your majesty, what are you throwing a tantrum about now? Lex the money tree, my editor ran away. Leo, haven't your editors always run away? Quite a few of them, in fact. Lex the money tree, my temporary editor ran away too. Leo, maybe you should look at your own behavior. The temporary editor is so good-tempered, and you still manage to scare him off. Lex the money tree. I'm coming to your headquarters to discuss terminating the contract. Leo, I'm begging you, don't come. Leo was clearly in a panic and seemed to be calling me to account. Leo, did something happen between you two yesterday? Did he bully you? I was a little touched that his first concern was for me. The next second, I wasn't smiling anymore. Leo, even if he bullies you, you have to bear it as long as he keeps writing. Your commission will be enough for you to buy a house and a car. Mayo. You have a point, but please stop talking. Me, nothing happened. He even updated yesterday. I just came back to Central City for a bit to see my daughter. Maybe he has a problem with you, boss. I suggest you get replaced. Leo. If the money tree terminates the contract, both of us are out of a job. Forget replacing me, you'll have to find a new job. Leo, he's already on a flight over. You need to come to the office too. We have to keep him calm. I felt a bit exhausted. Looking at the innocent Yasmin, a wave of guilt washed over me. I had said I was coming back to spend time with her, but I was still being pulled around by work. But it was a weekday, and the situation with Julian had started on my watch, so I had to take responsibility. After thinking it over, I took Yasmin to the office with me. Our company has a great atmosphere. As long as you get your work done, they aren't too strict with employees. That's why we have a few office cats for employees to distress with, and quite a few working moms bring their kids in. With security guards around, we don't have to worry about the kids wandering off. When I'm not busy, I sometimes bring Yasmin to the office to play, so all my colleagues know her. They love taking turns playing with her. Today was no different. The moment I arrived, Yasmin was whisked away. I went to Leo's office first and spent a few minutes debriefing him on every detail. Leo stroked his chin, his eyes serious as he scanned me from head to toe. Did he fall for you at first sight? Other editors show up to chase him for drafts and he doesn't budge. But the moment he sees you, he's shaving, showering, making tea, and even updating his novel. I was too embarrassed to tell him that we had actually dated for a year, but Julian had already forgotten about a passerby like me. I could only offer a polite smile. If that's the case, then that's for the best. Lex, sir, is handsome, rich, and a great earner. If he likes me, I could use my connections to replace you as chief editor in no time. Leo, you supposed to be a reserved person. You've got some serious bite. Me. We know each other well enough, it's fine. Suddenly there was a knock on the office door. A colleague carefully opened it. They whispered, Chief Editor Lex is here, but his face is so pale he looks like he's about to die. He's not going to collapse in our office, is he? Leo looked desperate. He's not the type to stay up all night writing. How could he collapse? Who pissed him off this time? The colleague was confused and explained, we don't know either. He saw us playing with Yasmin, then asked where your office was. But Yasmin's a little charmer with a thing for handsome faces. She ran over and hugged Lex's leg, asking if he could be her daddy. We explained that Yasmin is baby's child, and that baby was in a meeting with you, and then Lex's whole expression changed. I shot up from my seat, my face instantly turning pale. I had shown Yasmin a picture of Julian when he was 20. He looked younger then, not as mature as he is now. But when Yasmin asked me where her daddy was, I had told her he was dead. Now she probably saw that Julian looked like her daddy and wanted him as a substitute. I was about to lose my mind. I rushed out of the office and saw Yasmin still clinging to a shell-shocked Julian. A wave of panic hit me. I quickly scooped Yasmin up and apologized to Julian. I'm so sorry, she's just a kid. She sees a handsome face and wants him to be her dad. He had cut his hair short. His features looked sharper, more handsome, but I was in no mood to appreciate it. I was terrified he would find out Yasmin was his child and get angry at me. I was also afraid he would try to take Yasmin away, although that was unlikely. But I was just scared. Leo followed me out, glancing between me and Julian. He pointed at himself, adding to the chaos, am I not handsome? How come she never asked me to be her daddy? I couldn't take it anymore and shot Leo a glare. Julian silently released his pheromones, not the pleasant kind that attracted omegas, but a suppressive, overwhelming pheromone unique to top-tier alphas. Leo, being an alpha, felt it. He clicked his tongue and pulled both Julian and me into his office. Baby, hand Yasmin over to those kid-obsessed fanatics and get in here too. The moment Julian and Leo were inside the office, the battle began. Julian swept a dark gaze over Leo. What gives you the right to call him baby? Leo let out a little ooh. That's his pen name. Why can't I call him that? What business is it of yours, Lex, sir? Julian fumed and slammed his fist on the sofa. "You're not allowed to call him that." Leo shrugged. Then I walked in. I don't know if it was my imagination, but although the oppressive feeling was gone, the atmosphere was still strange. Still shaken, I stood nervously before the two of them, like a student being punished. Julian stood up, walked toward the long sofa, and abruptly sat down next to Leo. Then he gestured for me to take the single armchair. Me. What had I done to deserve this? That was the seat for honored guests. Leo let out a sudden laugh. "Just sit where he tells you. Why be so polite? Anyone who knows me knows I'm obedient." So I sat down. Then Leo started his act. I don't know what was going through his head. A moment ago he was terrified Lex would leave, and now he was acting like he feared nothing. He tilted his chin at Lex. "Weren't you here to terminate the contract? I've already had someone draw up the papers. We can sign them in a bit. Me. Wait, Leo. Leo raised a hand and pressed it down. "Don't worry, I won't take it out on you. After I terminate the contract with Lex, I'll assign you to an even more handsome author as a consolation for your traumatized soul." He glanced at Julian, his tone dripping with sarcasm. "After all, our great Lex is quite the tormentor. You only dealt with him for half a day and you couldn't take it anymore and ran back to Central City." Wait, is that how I explained it to him? Now Julian was going to think I was badmouthing him to the boss. What if he really terminated the contract in a fit of anger? A third of our company's revenue comes from him. I was panicking. I stood up to explain. Leo's face hardened. "Sit down. Is this your place to speak?" Julian looked angry too. He shot to his feet and I thought he was going to storm out. Instead, he turned to Leo, his voice shaking with rage. "What gives you the right to yell at him? Even I don't dare to yell at him." Leo winked at me. I was already dumbfounded by Julian's words. Leo looked innocently at Julian and said, "What's wrong with me scolding my own subordinate? But you, Lex, you're such a big shot. There's actually an editor you don't dare to scold." Lex was like a caged beast, with nowhere to vent his frustration. Finally, with red-rimmed eyes, he ran his hands through his hair, messing up his carefully styled look. Then he turned to me, his expression serious. But there was a strange glimmer of hope in his eyes. "Ian Edwards, who is the child's father? Is he not good to you? Otherwise, why would she want someone else to be her father?" That's what he was focused on, and he remembered who I was. I was floored. A flood of emotions washed over me. Bitterness, joy, and a hope I had long since buried. But I didn't dare to hope. Maybe Julian was just resentful about being dumped by me. So when we met again, he pretended not to know me, just to mess with me. Now that he saw I wasn't as happy as he thought, he wanted to mock me. The more I guessed, the more miserable I felt. I couldn't help but lower my head, a lump forming in my throat as I remained silent. Leo answered for me. "Sigh, our baby has had it rough. Widowed early, raising a child all alone, it's been so hard." The oppressive atmosphere instantly lightened. It was like Julian had learned how to switch faces. A laugh he couldn't hide bubbled up in his throat. "Widowed, really? That's too bad. What a drain on his energy." Leo crossed his legs, tapping his index finger on his knee. My heart sank. Every time he did that, it meant he was plotting something. Sure enough, the next second, Leo made his move. "Aren't we getting off topic? Lex, weren't you here to terminate the contract?" Julian froze for a moment, then obediently sat back down on the sofa. "I don't have to terminate it, but I have a condition." Leo tilted his chin. "Let's hear it." Julian glanced at me. "From now on, baby has to be my only editor." Leo raised an eyebrow. "Are you two that close? Why are you being so familiar?" Julian shot him a sideways glance. "None of your damn business." "Leo, let's just terminate the contract. I can't stand your rotten attitude anymore." Julian. "What I mean is, even though he's forgotten me, it's my fault for not treating him well before. I want to apologize to him properly." Leo, "Then tell him. Why are you telling me?" Julian took a deep breath, seemingly afraid to look at me. He kept his head down, fidgeting with his hands. "I will. Just make him my editor." I was completely lost. I think I guessed wrong. Julian was the person I loved. He might not have loved me back then, but he was never a bad person. Why did I have to think the worst of him? "Ian Edwards, is this your way of protecting yourself? It's so cruel." I looked up at Julian, my gaze serious, and told him, "I haven't forgotten you, Julian, and I never blamed you. You don't have to apologize to me." Julian looked up in surprise, transforming from a dejected lone wolf into a pitiful puppy. "You remember me, then why did you pretend not to know me?" I scratched my head and said honestly, because it was awkward. "And I thought you'd be angry at me. I also thought you had forgotten me." Julian's eyes were deep. "How could I ever forget you? Back then Leo let out a fake cough. He waved his hand. Hello, friends, there's another person here. Can you see me? This is my office, not your private garden, okay? My face instantly turned beet red. Oh my God. What was I doing during work hours? I shot up from my seat and fled. Leo, you two talk. I'll go make some coffee. I don't know what they talked about. I only know that Julian's expression had calmed down. And Leo was all smiles. He had probably succeeded in keeping his cash cow. Before Julian left, he gave me a deep look. Then he went over to say a special goodbye to Yasmin. He even leaned in and whispered something in her ear. Before I had a chance to ask Yasmin what he said, Leo called me into his office. You've wrapped up your work in Z City, right? I nodded. Leo smiled like an old fox. Then you don't need to go back to Z City on business anymore. For some reason, I felt a strange pang of disappointment. And some confusion, so I don't have to be Lex's editor anymore. Leo grinned, a very cheap-looking grin. He wagged his finger. No, he's moving to Central City. Then he looked angry again and slammed his hand on the desk. I made him countless promises and tried to persuade him to move here so many times before, but he always refused me. He said he couldn't leave Z City. So what now he can? I froze for a moment, remembering something. Julian was actually from Central City, but he was rebellious in college and chose to study in Z City, the furthest from home. My hometown is in Z City, but there were too few opportunities there, so I chose Central City, the fastest growing and best place for my career. Thinking about it, it seems we were always missing each other. I wasn't sure what I was feeling, but I managed a small smile. That's great news. You can personally be his editor, Leo. Leo shook his head with a smile. His condition for not terminating the contract is that you're his editor. My condition was that he moves to Central City. Ian, I have high hopes for you. Leo usually called me Ian. I had no idea what had gotten into him in front of Julian earlier. No point in dwelling on it. I nodded. I'll do my best, but I can't guarantee I can handle it all the time because I hesitated for a second, then said it. He's my ex-boyfriend. I'm worried it will get awkward if we spend too much time together. Leo asked me, will you be awkward? I shook my head. I'll keep it professional. But in truth, I probably still felt like I owed him something and wanted to give back in other ways. Whether it was by properly managing his work or by being his punching bag when his writing wasn't going well, I was willing. Leo threw up his hands. Then that's settled. Why would he be awkward? He'd be thrilled. Anyway, just make sure you torment him. Pester him for manuscripts whenever you can. Torment Julian? I probably couldn't do that. Julian rewrote the first few chapters. He changed everything before the part where the protagonist forced himself on the Omega. Now, the story was about the Omega running away while pregnant, and the Alpha going to online forums to ask netizens how to win him back. And the netizens delivered. Go wherever the Omega goes. Don't hover around him too much, you'll just be annoying. But when he needs help, you have to appear at the right time to solve the problem. As everyone knows, an Alpha's greatest charm isn't his looks, but his ability to solve problems. Alpha protagonist. So I don't need to seduce him with my looks. Netizen. Seduce him, of course you have to seduce him. If you two don't get it on, what are we supposed to watch? Wipes nosebleed. And so, the next day, Julian showed up at my office dressed like a male model. The company had given him his own office, and they had moved me in with him to keep a close eye on him. Every day when my eyes got tired from staring at the computer, I could only look out the window or be forced to watch Julian working hard. I just didn't know why, but often when I looked at him, he would happen to be looking up to relax at the same time. When he saw me looking, he would curve his lips into a smile. He used to smile at me like that before, but it was rare and arrogant, never this soft and warm. I was staring at him in a daze. He suddenly and very naturally reached up and undid a few buttons on his shirt collar. He muttered, "It's so hot in here. Baby, are you hot?" I looked at the 60 degrees F setting on the air conditioner remote and shook my head, confused. "I'm not hot, I'm actually a little cold." Julian's brow furrowed. He stood up and took his suit jacket from the back of his chair. He walked over to me and draped the jacket over my shoulders. Then he turned the AC up a few degrees. Then he placed both hands on the armrests on either side of me, lined down, and stared at me. He said with great earnestness, "Baby, you don't have to accommodate me anymore. From now on, always put yourself first, okay?" Beneath his open collar, the red mole under his collarbone was on full display. His bulging chest muscles were incredibly sexy and alluring. I hastily lowered my head, stammering, Could you call me something else? This beautiful scenery, this form of address. I really couldn't stop my mind from wandering. It didn't matter when others called me that. They were just colleagues, and there were no romantic feelings involved. But this was Julian, my first love, the only person I had ever been passionately in love with. The only person I constantly felt I owed. I couldn't keep my heart as still as water. Julian let out a light laugh. Sure, change your pen name and I'll change what I call you. Why, you know my name. Julian was righteously indignant. Then tell me, why can everyone else call you baby, but I can't? I was speechless. Fine, let him call me that. He was the one who insisted on it. It wasn't like I asked him to. That night, in his newly updated chapter, the seduction scene appeared. Except for the setting and the plot, everything else was more or less the same. Even the mole under the protagonist's collarbone was identical. The more I read this kind of scene, the more I felt something was off. Was Julian drawing inspiration directly from our real-life interactions? Could it be that he moved to Central City just to be closer to me and use me as material? As I read, I wondered if Julian had always used this method for his writing. If so, he was incredibly dedicated. A strange feeling settled in my stomach, but I shouldn't be feeling this way. As his editor, I should do my utmost to help him write the best work possible. Even if he was using me as material, I should be happy to do it. At least this way I could be closer to him. I tossed and turned, unable to sleep all night. I felt like a teenager again, my mind tangled with emotions. A nickname, a single gesture, and I wanted to misunderstand it. Could Julian really like me? But was that even possible? The person who couldn't fall for me when I was at my best, would he fall for me now that I was worn down by the 9 to 5 and had a child? I wanted to believe it, but I didn't dare. But Julian was determined to force his way back into my world. On Friday, before leaving work, Julian asked me what I was doing over the weekend. I told him I was taking my daughter for a picnic in the park. Most kids love nature and crowded places. They are full of energy and curiosity about the unknown. The complete opposite of me. Crowded places are too noisy, and I get tired after a while. But I have to nurture that curiosity in my daughter so she can discover more wonderful things. So no matter how busy I am, I take her to all sorts of places she wants to go every week. My mom usually comes with us. After learning about my weekend plans, Julian asked, "Can I come with you?" He needed to gather material on the weekend too. I sighed inwardly and nodded. "You can, if you want to." Julian was very happy. He took out a notebook and a pen. "What do we need for a picnic with a child? You tell me, I'll prepare everything." He was being too considerate, but I felt a bit embarrassed accepting his offer. "It's okay, I can prepare it myself." Julian looked up, his expression crestfallen. "Are you still mad at me? Is that why you don't want me to come?" I was confused. "Why would I be mad at you?" Julian started to criticize himself. "I wasn't thoughtful enough before. My personality was terrible and I always said hurtful things." I almost laughed. I tried to save his pride. "Your personality isn't terrible. You were just being honest." I understood. Julian couldn't understand. His eyes filled with heartache. He walked over to me with his notebook, knelt down, and looked up at me. "You shouldn't have to understand. If you hear something you don't like, you can argue back. That way, I can register your emotions in time and avoid making the same mistake. Ian, you need to be good to yourself, not just to others." I looked down at him, and the heat in his eyes made me look away. My fingertips suddenly twitched. A pleasant scent wafted to my nose, and my body suddenly felt hot. I didn't know what to do. In a panic, I snatched the notebook and pen from him. "I'll write it down for you then. Thank you for preparing everything." We had arranged to meet at the park, but I broke our promise that day. My mom took Yasmin to the park by herself. I had a fever, my consciousness was hazy, and I incoherently asked my mom to apologize to Julian for me. I wanted to say that if he felt awkward, he could just go home. My heat had arrived early. Usually I could get through it with suppressants, but this time it was unbearable. The rich scent of green apple cider filled the room, and I was nearly drunk on my own pheromones. I lost track of time, of day and night. In a daze, I heard someone knocking on the door. I tried to open it. I thought I had, but I couldn't. Someone was pushing the door from the outside, saying, "Don't open the door, baby." It was Julian, but I couldn't smell a trace of lime. He was being so stingy. I felt a little dissatisfied. He stuck a hand through the gap, holding 2 vials. "This is my concentrated pheromone. A venous injection will ease the pain and help you calm down faster." I dazedly took the vials and slid down against the door. My brain wasn't working. I clutched the injectors, gasping for air. Julian said, "I'll be right outside. When you've calmed down, we can go find your baby and your mom together." Years of caution and grievances seemed to erupt in that one moment. My eyes burned. I clutched the vials and said, "But Julian, my vision is blurry. I can't find my vein." My voice must have been choked with tears. Julian panicked. "Don't cry, it's my fault. I should have taken care of it for you." But he still hesitated. "Baby, can you stick your hand out? I'll give you the injection, okay?" Why should I? If he wanted to win me back, shouldn't he be more proactive? As if worried I would misunderstand, he quickly explained. "I'm afraid if I see you like this right now, I won't be able to stop myself from hurting you." I wasn't listening. I started to blame him. "It's all your fault. My heat used to be regular and the suppressants worked fine. If you hadn't insisted on showing up in front of me, my heat never would have come early." Julian was really placating me. Okay, it's all my fault. You can punish me later. Let's just make you feel better now, okay?" I just started bringing up old scores. "No, back then, during your rut, you could sleep with me whenever you wanted, for as long as you wanted. Why do I have to suffer and take a shot now? I want to sleep with someone too." Julian was silent for a few seconds. He asked in a hoarse voice, "Who do you want to sleep with?" I rambled nonsensically. "An alpha, a top tier, the most handsome alpha." A tidal wave of overwhelming pheromones crashed over me. It felt so good, intoxicating. I breathed it in greedily. I pulled open my pajama top, trying to expose as much skin as possible to absorb the pheromones. Suddenly, a light appeared above me, then cast a shadow. Julian had opened the door, stepped inside, and closed it. He knelt in front of me. His expression was dark. "Baby, didn't I ask you before if you liked being forced into a romance?" His hand reached out, tracing a path down my face, burning all the way down to my heart. "This place is not allowed to be occupied by any other alpha." He was so calm. He took the vials from my hand, about to give me the injection. I got angry, snatched them back, and threw them across the room. "Julian, you don't like me at all otherwise. Why are you so unmoved when I'm like this?" Julian was stunned for a few seconds. Then he laughed, a humorless sound. He took my hand and placed it on his body, his lower abdomen, his thigh. He guided my hand inch by inch. "I'm unmoved. I want to devour you right now, but I don't dare. Ian, I'm terrified that you're just being controlled by instinct right now. I'm afraid you'll hate me when you're clear-headed. Tell me, besides this, what else can I do right now?" He didn't trust me. And he had no confidence. I finally understood. I pointed at the vials on the floor and commanded him, "Then go pick them up." Julian was so obedient, just like I used to be. He went to retrieve the vials, his beautiful, sharp eyes lowered as he prepared the injection for me. It was indeed fast acting. My mind cleared instantly. A belated sense of shame washed over me. I hugged my knees and buried my head. Julian gave a bitter laugh. He stood up. "I'll go outside to cool down. You can come out when you're ready." He walked past me, about to leave the space. My hand trembled as I reached out and grabbed his. Only then did I realize his palm was slick with cold sweat, and there were several nail marks indented in his skin. I whispered, "Julian, I don't want you to go." Julian didn't hear me. He turned back and knelt down again. He brought his ear close to my face. "What did you say? Say it again. I'll hear you this time." I looked up and leaned in. I placed a kiss on the side of his face. I said softly, "I said I still like you a lot. Please don't go." I still remembered when I confessed to him in college. I said, "I like you a lot. Please go out with me." I had said it so many times. And Julian finally agreed. So today I wanted to say it many times again. "Did you hear me? I can say it many more times." I opened my mouth to speak, but Julian sealed it with his. He kissed me deeply, heavily, urgently. Then he pulled back, his eyes red as he pressed his forehead against mine. "Let me say it this time. Give me a chance to love you, to cherish you. Ian, I'm begging you." I obediently nodded. Julian said he loved me very much, that he had fallen in love with me before I broke up with him. And after I left, every day he loved me more than the last. But the more I loved you, the more guilty I felt for not cherishing you before. And the more guilty I felt, the more scared I became. Scared that you were completely disappointed in me, that your love for me had turned to hate. I remembered you said you wanted to work in the literary industry, so I started writing. I wanted to reconnect with you. For nearly 4 years, I couldn't find you. I was getting desperate, so I just started writing whatever, lashing out at the world. I even regret not starting to write sooner. If I had, would I have been able to find you sooner? I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. If the author I was assigned to hadn't been in Z City, I wouldn't have gone back. I wouldn't have been sent as Julian's temporary editor. and we wouldn't have met again. So all I could say was, it's not too late now. Speaking of which, that author and I had sort of been each other's red string of fate. I had brought her husband to Z City, and she had led me to Julian in Z City. My mind drifted a little. Julian was not pleased. He lightly bit my chin. He asked, "What are you thinking about?" I snapped back to reality, stood up, and pulled him toward my room, thinking about how to devour you. Julian stopped, unmoving. "Then will you start a new relationship with me?" My eyes darted around. A curious thought popped into my head. "You don't mind that I have a child?" Julian's hand tightened on mine. "The child is innocent, and since your husband is dead, your child is my child." I doubled over with laughter. "You want to be my baby's stepfather?" Julian nodded, his expression stoic. I looked at him with a straight face. "Well, there's a problem. You can't be her stepfather." Julian froze, his expression suddenly turning tragic. His eyes began to well up with tears. "Ian, don't you like me? Do you only like my body and not want my heart?" He dropped to his knees with a thud, his tears hitting the floor before his knees did. Julian took my hand and rubbed it against his face. The back of my hand became damp. "I'll be really good to you from now on. It's okay if you don't say yes right away. I can pursue you for as long as it takes, as long as you give me a chance." I waited for him to finish. Then I hugged him. "You guessed wrong. As long as it's you, I like everything. But Yasmin is your biological daughter. You were never destined to be her stepfather." I explained. "Even though you were always careful, the last time we were together, your rut was so severe you lost control and it broke." Julian's whole body relaxed. He murmured, "You don't have to explain. Everything in the past was my fault. You really scared me to death, but you shouldn't be like this. According to the netizens, I should chase you for a few more years so you can let go of your anger. This habit of yours, forgiving people too quickly, it's not good." I didn't understand. What's wrong with forgiving someone you already love? He had never done anything unforgivable to me. Maybe I was just a love-struck fool. I just wanted his body and soul right now. I didn't want to play games and torment each other. So I pushed him onto my bed and started taking off his clothes. Next time, tell your netizens to mind their own business when it comes to real-life couples. They can just read the novels. Julian seemed to have been holding back for a long time. The moment I touched him, I couldn't help but let out a small laugh. He was in a hurry to prove there was nothing wrong with him and wore me out for 2 hours. He still wasn't satisfied, but he stopped. "Sweetheart and Mom are waiting for us. We have a long future ahead. I'll serve you properly later." You're already calling her Mom. Of course. Oh right, I need to have someone buy gifts for Mom and our baby girl. Baby, what's our daughter's name? Yasmin Edwards. It's beautiful. Does it have a special meaning? You guess. It has 2 meanings. The first one I mentioned earlier. The second is a little secret of mine. Yasmin, a name that, in my heart, held a secret prayer for Julian, but I won't tell him that. It might go to his head. My mom was stunned when she saw the gifts Julian had prepared. Several kilograms of very practical gold bars. Yasmin didn't know how much the gold was worth. She just liked shiny things and played with them. My mom pulled me aside and asked, "Is he crazy, or did you join a pyramid scheme and scam him?" I said, "Mom, he's Yasmin's father, the person from the photo." My mom understood immediately. "My mom and I are like friends, we have no secrets. He's here to win you back." I couldn't help but smile. "Should I make him chase me for a while longer?" My mom gave me a strange look. "That's up to you. Why are you asking someone else?" I watched Yasmin sitting on Julian's back, holding a gold bar and playing horseback rider, yelling, "Giddy up." I smiled. I want Yasmin to experience the happiness of having 2 fathers as soon as possible. And I don't want to waste any more time or emotions. You have to seize fleeting opportunities and be brave many times over. The worst that can happen is we go back to where we started. Mom, don't you think so? My mom secretly turned her head and wiped the corner of her eye. You've always had your own mind, ever since you were little. All I can do now is respect and support you. But Mom, you're the one who taught me to be this way, allowing me to be timid, but also encouraging me to be brave. I should stop being so sentimental. My mom cries easily. Yasmin was having a great time, but she didn't forget to look back at me. She was smiling so happily. "Dad, come play with us." I ran towards them. "Okay, sweetheart, Daddy's coming." The years were kind, and a gentle breeze blew. The moon was full that night. Only then did I learn that the secret Julian had whispered to Yasmin that day was, "I can be your daddy, as long as your dad is willing." Epilogue: 1 year later, Leo was furious. He pointed at Julian's nose and yelled, "I allow office romances. But is that any reason for you not to start a new book after finishing your reconciliation story? If you don't start a new book, I'm transferring Ian to Z City. Julian was completely unfazed by the threat. Wherever he goes, I go. Leo was at his wit's end. He turned to me. Baby, please get this guy to start a new book. The whole company is depending on him to make a living. Julian frowned. Who are you calling baby? Leo was being deliberately annoying. I'll call him baby if I want to. Hey baby, what you doin'? You sleepin'? I'm telling you, Julian, if you don't start a new book, I'm going to pursue Ian. Even if I don't win him over, I'll annoy you to death, Julian. Fine, I'll start. I found it amusing and asked, what's the genre? Julian glared at Leo. Mystery, I think. I feel like killing someone. Leo rubbed his arms and hummed a tune as he walked out, a picture of contradiction. He didn't forget to throw a final jab over his shoulder. Show-offs. You think you're the only young people who can be in love. I'm going to go find a college guy to date, and I'll rub it in your faces too. Leo is only 28 this year. He has a clingy puppy he adopted at home and has no time for dating. I heard the puppy just came of age this year. He might finally have a bit more freedom. The end.